With Melkor chained, and the three kindreds of the elves brought at last to Valinor, so began the noontide of the Blessed Realm, in which the inhabitants reached the height of their glory and bliss, growing ever stronger and more wise in knowledge. Now, the early history of Middle-earth talks about the Noldor and of their deeds, and so here are listed the names of the princes of the Noldor. Finwë was king of the Noldor. The sons of Finwë were Fëanor and Fingolfin and Finarfin. But the mother of Fëanor was Miriel, whereas the mother of Fingolfin and Finarfin was Indis of the Vanyar. Fingolfin was the mightiest in skill of word and of hand, more learned than his brothers. Fingolfin was the strongest, the most steadfast, and the most valiant. Finarfin was the fairest, and the most wise of heart. And afterwards he was a friend of the sons of Olwë, lord of the Teleri, and had to wife Eowyn, the swan maiden of Alqualondë, Olwë's daughter. The 7 sons of Fëanor were Maedhros the tall, Maglor the mighty singer, Celegorm the fair, Caranthir the dark, Curfin the crafty, who inherited most of his father's skill of hand, and the youngest, Amrod and Amras, who were twin brothers alike in mood and face. The sons of Fingolfin were Fingon and Turgon, and their sister was Eredhel the White. She was younger in the years of the Eldar than her brothers, and when she was grown to full stature and beauty she was tall and strong. The sons of Finarfin were Finrod the Faithful, and Ordruff, Angrod, and Agnor. These 4 were as close in friendship with the sons of Fingolfin as though they were all brothers. And a sister they had, Galadriel, most beautiful of all the house of Finwë. Her hair was lit with gold, as though it had been caught in the mesh of the radiance of Lorelin, the younger of the 2 trees. Here in Eldamar, at the height of the days of bliss, the eldest of the sons of Finwë, and the most beloved, was born. Curu Finwë was his name, but by his mother he was called Fëanor, spirit of fire, and thus he is remembered in all the tales of the Noldor. Miriel was the name of his mother, who was called Serindil, because of her surpassing skill in weaving and needlework, for her hands were the most skilled to fineness than any hands even among the Noldor. The love of Finwë and Miriel was great and glad, for it began in the Blessed Realm in the days of bliss, but in the bearing of her son, Miriel was consumed in spirit and body, and after his birth she yearned for release from the labor of living. And when she had named him, she said to Finwë, "Never again shall I bear child, for strength that would have nourished the life of many has gone forth into Fëanor." Then Finwë was grieved, and when Miriel languished still, Finwë sought the counsel of Manwë, and Manwë delivered her to the care of Urmo in Lorien. At their parting, Finwë was sad, for it seemed an unhappy chance that the mother should depart and miss the beginning, at least, of the childhood days of her son. "It is indeed unhappy," said Miriel, "and I would weep if I were not so weary. But hold me blameless in this, and in all that may come after." She went then to the gardens of Lorien and lay down to sleep. But though she seemed to sleep, her spirit departed from her body and passed in silence to the halls of Mandos. The maidens of Este tended the body of Miriel. It remained unwithered, but she did not return. Then Finwë lived in sorrow, and he went often to the gardens of Lorien. And alone in all the Blessed Realm he was deprived of joy. After a while he went to Lorien no more. All his love he gave thereafter to his son, and Fëanor grew swiftly, as if a secret fire were kindled within him. He was tall and fair of face and masterful, his eyes personally bright and his hair raven dark, in the pursuit of all his purposes eager and steadfast. Few ever changed his courses by counsel, none by force. He became of all the Noldor then or after the most subtle in mind and the most skilled in hand. In his youth, bettering the work of Rumil, he devised those letters which bear his name, and which the Eldar used ever after. And he it was who first of the Noldor discovered how gems greater and brighter than those of the earth might be made with skill. The first gems that Fëanor made were white and colorless, but being set under starlight they would blaze with blue and silver fires brighter than helium, and other crystals he made also, wherein things far away could be seen small but clear, as with the eyes of the eagles of Manwë. Seldom were the hands and mind of Fëanor at rest. While still in his early youth, he wedded Nyrdanel, the daughter of a great smith named Matan, among those of the Noldor most dear to Arle. And of Matan he learned much of the making of things in metal and in stone. Nyrdanel also was firm of will, but more patient than Fëanor, desiring to understand minds rather than to master them. 7 sons she bore to Fëanor. Her mood she bequeathed in part to some of them, but not to all. Now it came to pass that Finwë took as his second wife Indis the Fair, who was a Vanyar, close kindred of Ingwë, the High King. She had golden hair and was in all ways unlike Muriel. Yet Finwë loved her and was glad again. Yet the shadow of Muriel did not depart from the house of Finwë, nor from his heart, and of all those whom he loved, Fëanor had the greatest share. Now the marriage of his father was not pleasing to Fëanor, and he had no great love for Indis, nor for her sons, Fingolfin and Finarfin, and he lived apart from them. And many saw the effects of this breach in the house of Finwë, for the grief and strife that came of it is graven in the hearts and minds of all the Noldor. Now while the Eldar continued their work and saw no end to their bliss, the noontide of Valinor was drawing to a close, for Melkor had completed his 3 ages in the halls of Mandos, and was released, and brought before the judgment of the thrones of the Valar. There he abated himself at the feet of Manwë, and sued for pardon. And he declared that if he were made only the least of those dwelling in Valinor, he would aid the Valar in all their labors, and heal the hurts that he had wrought on the world. So Manwë granted him pardon, but the Valar would not suffer him to dwell beyond their sight and vigilance, and he remained within the gates of Valmar. Yet fair seeming were all the deeds and words of Melkor in that time, and both the Valar and the Eldar held profit from his aid and counsel, if any sought it. Therefore in a while Manwë granted him leave to go throughout the land as he wished, and it seemed to him that the evil of Melkor was wholly cured. For although Manwë was free from evil, he could not comprehend it, and he did not foresee that all love had departed Melkor forever. But many of the other Valar were not fooled, but they held their peace. For those who would fight against rebellion must not rebel themselves. Now in his heart Melkor most hated the Eldar, both because they were fair and joyous, and because he saw in them the reason for his downfall. Therefore all the more did he feign love and friendship to them, and he promised them his aid in all that they did. The Vanyar held him in suspicion, for they dwelt in the light of the Valar and the 2 trees, and were content. The Teleri he took small heed, deeming them tools too weak for his designs. But the Noldor delighted in all the hidden knowledge he revealed to them, and they hearkened to words it would have been better for them never to have heard. And so ended the noontide of Valinor.